Hello everyone and welcome to the Perfect Search training on site audits for SEO. Before we dive into specifics, we first want to talk about what is a site audit. So a site audit is essentially the process of comprehensively reviewing a website for opportunities that are tied to technical health, content and your content strategy, your mobile experience, and the strength of your domain off-page, so your domain authority and spam score and anything else attributed to referring domains pointing back to you. Conducting a site audit helps to create a really solid SEO strategy based around the items in the audit that need the most help. They also help you to prioritize if you are just starting to work on a website or have a new client. You can best prioritize which items you first want to focus in on right away. And on the right-hand side there, we do just have a screenshot of what our site audit looks like for clients at Perfect Search Media specifically. If you are working through this for a different website, for a different agency, or for your own website, you don't have to follow this template exactly, but this is how we do it at PSM. So we're using that as a reference for you to better understand each of these areas. So before we start on a site audit, we do have that audited domain at the top, the date that the site audit was conducted, and then on the first page, we do have a high-level summary of the next steps for the SEO team. In this example, we have 4 next steps, but typically this is the 3 to 5 areas that we found to need the most work. So we want to point those out right in the beginning as kind of a general overview of what we'll be working on after conducting this audit. So the first portion of the audit itself is site health, and this is most likely the largest portion of the audit. So the first 2 elements that we look into on any website when conducting an audit is the robots.txt file and the XML sitemap. So first, for the robots.txt file, you want to see that it exists. So to check that, you would go to the website, so whatever it is, domain.com/robots.txt. That string is how you can find any websites, robots.txt, and also for your own client, or this example, how you can see if they have one. After that, you can also look into if they are using the robots.txt properly. This doesn't have to be super in-depth, because if you do find that there are some areas for improvement, you'll be doing a robots.txt review later on. So this is more just a high-level view, checking out the robots.txt, and if there's any glaring red flags that notice immediately. And then secondly, we have the XML sitemap. Very similar to how you find the robots.txt, you can find the sitemap by typing domain.com/sitemap.xml. Again, you can do that for pretty much any website. If it is a large website, there might be a different site structure there. For example, sitemap-index. If it is a large site, they might have multiple sitemaps for their blog or their products or their category pages. So that is another common sitemap URL that you can look up if sitemap.xml does not exist. And again, similar to the robots.txt, you want to see if they're using it correctly. And for both of these items, if you are not completely up to speed on what they are, we do also have trainings on both to give you a better understanding of what to look for, what they are. So that will help too. And then on the right-hand side there, we do have a screenshot of what that would look like in the audit itself. So in this case, we did find that both the robots.txt and XML sitemap exist, which is great, but we have added some additional notes that it should be reviewed, or if there's any errors that are occurring. And there was a 500 server error code found in the XML sitemap, so we have highlighted that in red to likely be one of our 4 overall next steps that we first talked about. Any item that's highlighted in red is more of a problem area that we want to focus on. Next, under site health is the backlink profile. So this again is looking at a website's off-page strength and area for opportunity. So for this portion, we use Moz.com's Link Explorer to be able to really quickly find backlink metrics, whether that's the number of backlinks tied to the site, the number of unique referring domains, the spam score. We all use Moz for that, and they do offer 10 checks for free per month if you do not want to pay for that paid subscription. So in this instance, we looked at our own URL, so perfectsearchmedia.com. We have a domain authority of 40, roughly 1,300 unique linking domains, and a spam score of 1%, which is what you want it to be, with 1 being the best and 100% being the highest. And we include a high-level overview of those metrics and next steps within that description. Moving right along, we have the crawl errors portion. So for this example, we have used Screaming Frog to crawl the website to find any 400 error status codes, 500 error status codes, or if there are any 302 temporary redirects that we should be looking into. If you have access to different tools, that's totally fine, but for this example, we've used Screaming Frog. And we've found that there are 45 instances of 400 status code errors, 31 non-301 redirects, and 1 500 status code. So we've highlighted that red because we would like to investigate that further and prioritize it. And then next, we also have duplication. So this is quickly reviewing the site to see if there are any cases of URLs that are different, but the pages themselves are the exact same. The content is the same, which is an issue for Google because Google can penalize you if it is duplicate content. And then the other side of that is to see if there's duplicate metadata. So if there's duplicate title tags, H1 tags, or meta descriptions that we would need to manually update with unique metadata. So again, you can use that Screaming Frog crawl to find any pages with duplicate metadata. And what you can also do to find duplicate pages is to do a deconstructed site search within Google. Within their search results, you can type one of the variations, for example, on the right-hand side here. So you can type site perfectsearchmedia.com. So that's telling Google that any page you want to show up is under that domain. And then to find any page that does not have a www in front of it, you would do that / in URL, www. Because Perfect Search Media's main website is a www, you want to make sure that there's no URLs floating around there that are non-www. And you can also do the same with secure versus non-secure. Perfect Search's website is a secure website, so similarly you can do in URL, not in URL, HTTPS to see if there's any HTTP URLs floating around. And you can do the same thing if your website has subdomains. If there's any duplicate subdomain issues as well, you can use that deconstructed site search to pinpoint them. Next, we have schema markup. So to find current schema markup on any page, you can utilize Google's schema markup testing tool to see if there's any form of markup. One thing to note here is that if you type in the homepage, that is not checking the site as a whole, it's only checking the homepage. So you'll likely want to look into a few different page types. So if you're an e-commerce website, you could run their tool on the homepage, a category page, a blog page, and a product page, for example, since those are usually the pages that most regularly have schema on them. Secondly, you can also find it if you do have access to that website's Google Search Console property. You can find that under the enhancements report where Google has picked up that there is markup, and they will tell you if there's any errors or warnings within the markup that they've found. So those are two ways that you can detect if they have any on the website. And then secondly, you can kind of glance over them to see if there's any warnings or errors that should be cleaned up. And then also if there's any markup types that are missing that you believe to be a great opportunity. For example, if you're an e-commerce website and you're not using product schema to list the product type, the price, if it's in stock, the rating, you absolutely should include some opportunity types in there as well. The next section of the audit is content. So we've finished up with the technical portion and now looking at content. This portion of the audit is definitely more subjective. So whereas the technical site portion is more yes or no. You're going down a checklist to see if something exists or not. This is more up to the auditor. So we have all of those sections on the right-hand side there, but you'll want to be reviewing on-page content as well as the blog content if they do have a blog to determine if there's A, enough content, B, if it's high quality content, and C, is it optimized. So on the right-hand side there, you can see the first portion, amount of content. This will be a check to see how much content is on the homepage, how much content is on a category page or a blog page. Is it enough? Should the content be reviewed if it's too jargony and you don't think the average user would understand what it means? Secondly, content quality. Are there errors? Is it well written? Is it relevant? Checking to make sure there's no glaring issues with the content quality. Third is the content optimized. So it may not have any errors and it may be well written, but is it optimized for SEO? Are there keywords that are long tail? Are there internal links? Is it written with the user in mind? And in this instance, you can see that it is highlighted red, so it is not optimized currently, and that should be a focus for them. Fourth, we have internal linking. So you want to review the website, again, the site itself, the blog, to make sure that throughout the copy and throughout the top navigation bar and any calls to action, they are internally linking well throughout the site so users can easily navigate around with those internal links. And then finally, this is just a more general check, but do they even have a blog? You can mention that and write that down here if they do or not. And the next step being continue to create keyword-rich, high-quality content. The next section, which is the third section that our audits walk through, is metadata. So as we previously used that screaming frog crawl, this is where you can once again use that to review title tags, header tags, and meta descriptions for any that are either duplicate, too long. So for example, if your title tags are over 60 to 70 characters or your meta descriptions are over 155 characters, they are likely being cut off by Google and not following Google's best practices. So you'd want to shorten them. Or on the other side of that, if either the title tag or the meta description are extremely short, you would want to lengthen those as well. And then also you want to identify if all of the images that are on the website are optimized with alt tags, which describes the contents of the image for Google, but also for those that are visually impaired. And on the right-hand side there, again, we do have all four of those elements that we inspected, if they're found or if they should be reviewed. And then we do also have those specific numbers for how many meta descriptions are missing or how many title tags are duplicate as well, with title tags, meta descriptions, and alt tags in this instance being a high priority and highlighted red. So it's likely that optimizing the metadata is going to be one of our top 4 priorities. The next portion is mobile, which has 3 different elements that you'll look into. The first is using the Google Mobile Friendly Test. If you Google Mobile Friendly Test, quite literally, it will show up right in the results, and you can type in any domain you want to see if it passes or does not pass. So in this example, on the right-hand side, you can see there that we ran this test through Perfect Search Media, and very boldly and brightly in green, you can see that the page is mobile friendly. With that said, right above that green message, you can see that there are some page loading issues, which you can further look into the details, which would likely be a project later at hand that you'd want to work through to see what elements are causing loading issues on the website. Secondly is the mobile usability portion, which is found within Google Search Console. So if you're looking at a website that you do not have access to Google Search Console, you unfortunately cannot fill this portion out because you can't see it. But that is the screenshot that is on the left-hand side there. If you go to their mobile usability tool, you will see that they being Google, has reviewed a portion, typically not all, but a portion of your pages for mobile usability, and they will bucket any of those with errors as being potentially too big of content for the page on mobile, or elements that you can click are being too close together, which is not great user experience on mobile. So they will bucket all of that out for you and let you know if there's any issues and next steps that should be taken. But in this example and in this screenshot, you can see that there's 180 valid pages with no errors appearing, so no next steps needed. And then the final portion of the mobile audit is the pop-up interstitial. So this is anytime you're on mobile, if you go to a website and a pop-up appears that clearly interrupts your experience, you want to remove that. Mobile pop-ups do directly hurt your rankings, and Google penalizes that because it is pretty much annoying for the user to have to deal with. So you'll want to go to their website, just the homepage most likely, and sit there for a second to see if any pop-ups appear that interrupt your experience. The last portion of the audit is the user experience section. So on the right-hand side there, you can see a portion of this section, but the first is A/B testing. So if you go into the source code of the homepage, you can look up to see if they have any A/B testing code snippets there, which can help you allude to the fact that they've likely done A/B testing in the past. Some of the most common to look for, if you search VWO, Optimizely, or Google Optimize, those are usually the three biggest players. So if you see that any of those are in there, you can likely assume that they've done some A/B testing in the past. If they're not, we would definitely want to recommend that they start A/B testing with us or in general, because it is a great investment to work on. So there's likely tons of opportunities for them to A/B test. Secondly, we have homepage as well as navigation. We've bucketed them together because they are somewhat similar. For the homepage, you'll just want to quickly review to see how is the UX of that page. Does it flow well? Is it easy to understand? How is the hero image? How are the calls to actions on the homepage, etc., etc. And then in terms of the navigation, you're checking to see, is it intuitive? Does the top navigation make sense? Can you easily navigate and find a page that you're looking for? And we add all of those notes to this audit as well. And then the final portion is calls to action. So again, you're looking to see if there are buttons throughout the site to apply now or buy now, as well as calls to action within the text itself. Similar to internal linking, but it can be an anchor text call to action. So mark any of those, mention what the language is used and if it can be improved or the CTA can be stronger. Moving on to the second half of the user experience, we have the site search. This is pretty straightforward. You are just checking to see if there's a search bar within the website that lets you internally look something up. This is great user experience, and every website should honestly have a search bar on their site. Back is the second to last, which kind of sounds confusing, but essentially it is as you go deeper into a website. If you go from the home page to the sweaters page to a specific sweater product, can you easily click back to the home page with the breadcrumbs on the site versus having to just click the arrow back? Are there breadcrumbs in place that allow you to easily back up and maybe go back one step or two steps? If not, that should be added, and breadcrumb schema markup should also be included. And then the last portion is the site speed. And for this audit, we use Google's Page Speed Insights. You can run the test and they will give you a score out of 100, how your website performs on both mobile and desktop. And they also give you really specific recommendations on assets that you need to optimize or elements that could be improved to speed it up. Now with this tool, it is also similar to the structured schema tool, a page-by-page basis. So while your homepage might be super slow, your careers page could be really fast or vice versa. But since this is more a high-level audit, you can typically only look at the homepage or the homepage and maybe two other important pages to gauge how fast or slow your page is. And you can see that screenshot on the right there. We took a look at Nike.com and their mobile score is a 19 out of 100, which is very slow. So we would want to prioritize looking into site speed improvements. And that actually takes us through our SEO site audit process and deliverable. We hope this helped, and thank you so much.